Let's Talk Small Business, the real talk, no BS podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to grow and actually enjoy the ride. I'm Mitchell Wilson. Let's get into it. Graeme, I appreciate you being on here today. I really am interested to find out all about your career because you've had your career now, and congratulations on making it through a business and real estate life. So I'm keen to hear about what I guess we can all learn from those lessons. So, Graeme, let's talk business. Love to hear all about you and your life story in business. Where did it start?
Well, Mitchell, it's great to connect with you again after a few years of absence between us. And I just love what you said when, I've made it, like through work life. I just thought I'd let you know also I've just thrown my hat in for the council here in town this year. So I still haven't given up on doing things and being involved in the local community. So we'll see how that works out this year.
I'm pretty sure I remember saying to you that I think you should run for president if we had one of those in there. So that's the next best thing.
Yeah. No, look, my work life really started fully when I was dairy farming. And I worked with, I got married very young at 20. In those days, we didn't court for long because we weren't allowed to live together like they do today. So it was marriage or that was the ultimate if you found the right girl. I did early on, and we got married and dairy farmed for the first, 25 years of my life, working life from the age of 20. Mm-hmm. We're dairy farmers. We dairy farmed in the Rye Valley area. And then we went down to North Otago and we set up a dairy farm from scratch down there, which was a great challenge. Excuse me. Dairy farmers weren't really sought after down in North Otago back in the 80s. It was all sheep and cropping. Okay. So we were a new beast really for them. And so we took a farm from sheep farm into a dairy farm, and we developed that for 13 years.
And I guess that's a big industry now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. Like when back in the 80s, didn't have huge herd numbers, but it was a wonderful lifestyle. And in those years, I became chairman of about three companies throughout New Zealand, and I really cut my teeth in the corporate world. Okay. So although I had the dairy farm, my wife really managed it quite a lot, and so I was chairman of the local dairy company, involved in the dairy board. Travelled to Japan selling cheese to Japanese, which was a great experience of patience and building relationships, which really was one of the things that probably helped me a lot when I got into real estate a bit later on, learning how to connect with people and build relationships and be patient about doing that. Was a good lesson for me in those days.
Now, we didn't have the internet back then. When you went to Japan, it would have been a different beast. Like I can pick up a phone now and it can translate for me. How did that all work when you were going to Japan? I mean, what were the challenges?
Oh, obviously the language was a challenge because I'm not. English is tough enough for me, but we had interpreters over there, and one of the things I found was people are generally great people, and they're very empathetic and want you to understand what you're doing in business meetings. So it was taken slowly, and if you weren't sure if you understood, you just had to put your hand up and say, "Look, I'm not sure what's being said here." It was just learning, I think, particularly with the Japanese, they want to build a relationship well before they'll do business with you, and that's what I learned was that patience of not rushing to the deal too quick. It was to get the trust, and what they were looking for. Could they trust you? And did they want to, continue doing business with you? Which is, again, a bit like in real estate when I was involved in that you got to build that element of trust with people first.
Do you think that that's maybe a little bit of a lost art form in the newer generation?
Well, I think that in the newer generation, when I watch my grandchildren, it's totally different, of course, because they've got all this social media activity, but everything's in a hurry. Like it just seems to me that it's instant. Everything's got to be instant. And so I seen a huge change with that. And if things don't happen quick enough, well, they just flick onto something else.
Yeah.
And I know with young real estate agents too that the one or two that I've worked with is that they don't spend the time building that relationship. They want to get straight into the deal and to tell people how wonderful they are and all this sort of stuff, which is really not what people need to know, in my belief anyway.
So we got to Japan. You're selling the cheese there. You're the chairman of boards. You've been in dairy farming. Where from there?
Yeah, we sold the dairy farm, and then we bought a large historic home that was a private residence. It was a huge property, but the challenge there for us was that we just decided to develop it into an accommodation lodge. So it was the largest single-story wooden dwelling in the country. It was based in Oamaru. Not many people would know that. And we joined the group with the Hawker Lodges of New Zealand, and we set this place up as a lodge for overseas visitors mainly. Had a restaurant in it for a while for the locals, and we did that for about 4.5 years. But it was a very tough lifestyle. It was something that didn't fit with my wife. She didn't really enjoy the hospitality side of, and it was hard work. Like, hospitality might sound, how great to meet people and overseas guests, but by Jove's a lot of work behind the scenes. And so we sold that, and then that's when I entered real estate, and I did real estate for 25 years through till 2 years ago.
So what year did you start in real estate? What's that work out to be?
That would have been about 1998. 1998, yeah, because it was 97, 98 was when I got my license. 97 was I got my license, and I started selling dairy farms or selling farms down in North Otago in my early career, and then we shifted to Timaru in around 2000, and I joined. I didn't really want to do real estate in Timaru, to be quite frank. I probably should make that point. Real estate wasn't a great attraction to me because I thought it. I heard all these things about real estate agents, how they were only as good as car salesmen. And I didn't really want to be part of that scene, but I met a lovely guy that owned the professionals franchise in Timaru, a really nice chap. And he coerced me over a couple of coffees to come and join him. And when I realised that really real estate's about people, that's when I got enthused about it. And I started my career in Timaru with him, and it was a wonderful years with professionals. And then I did leave there and went and become sales manager at Harcourts, and I was an active listing agent as well. I didn't enjoy that phase of my life. I didn't like the competitiveness inside the office, and I struggled a little bit with the culture. And I was really, I was having some good years, but not really reaching my peak. And then one day I heard that Mike Pero was starting up a real estate franchise in New Zealand, and that was back in 2011. And I was lucky enough to get a franchise. I'll be able to purchase a franchise from the franchisor, and I spent 12 years in Mike Pero real estate. The most wonderful 12 years of my working life, really, when I think back. There was something quite special about it. The culture was different. It fitted me. And I started on my own at home here. And over years, we built a team of nine people. And we were Mike Pero's number one franchise for many years. So it was not only a wonderful time, but I had a group of people around me that were real team players. And I think the exciting thing for me was I was able to create the culture that I believe that we wanted to work under inside our franchise, because you have the freedom to set up your own culture, which I was very keen to do, and it worked.
So, picking on that word culture, you're saying that the Mike Pero years were the best years of your career because you could create your own culture. I don't think those starting out really appreciate what that does to a workplace or a team. What do you think about that? How important is it? Obviously, you enjoyed it, but is it important for the business?
When I reflect back, culture was number one. The number one foundation block, in my opinion, to build a successful business. And what I mean by that is, and what does culture mean? Well, culture for us was like you treat each person with respect. And I remember when I started out in the first, I never once advertised for team members. It was just they come knocking on the door from time to time because they knew who I was, and some of them I'd worked with previously at professionals. And the thing I said to them, the first thing I said to them, if you really want to come and join the Mike Pero team in Timaru, you're going to have to be prepared to become part of my extended family. And I said, if that doesn't fit with you, then I don't believe that the culture that we're developing is the right one for you. So it was very family oriented. When I say that, we respected each other, we worked for each other. There was never once a disagreement in the office because we were mature about it. Like if we had a little issue, we'd go and speak to the person about it. It never festered. Excuse me. And we supported each other. Like if someone had to take a few days off or that, their listings were looked after by the team. Payments weren't always asked for. Mm-hmm. Like we would do work for somebody in the team and it might get a sale, but we wouldn't take any commission on that because we knew that a time might come when we wanted to be away and they'd be looking after our part of the business. So the culture was just about respect and team playing, just being a real team player.
So how would you describe yourself as a leader in that business, in that arena?
Well, I suppose people have told me that worked with me that they enjoyed my leadership. And I said, well, what did you enjoy about it? And one of the things they always used to say to me, you're a member of the team. Yes, we know that you're the franchisee and you're the leader, but I never operated like someone sitting up above others. I played the game with them. We were equal. And if I saw something that was starting to get outside of what our culture we've established, I would deal with that, but not in a demanding way and not in a top down approach. It would be in a very how I'd speak to my own family would be the easiest way for me to describe it. I'd say, hey, look, John, what you did yesterday was probably not really appropriate. I think that we need to deal with that. Don't do that again or whatever. But I led by example, I believe. So I didn't ask them to be somebody that I wasn't prepared to be myself. Mm-hmm. And people followed it. They loved it. And I just, but I always stayed as a team member, even though I was maybe the boss. I didn't like the word boss. I used to joke every now and again and say, oh, here's the boss is coming. I said, well, I'm not going to come in the room now because I don't want to be known as the boss. And I was very adamant about that. And so it's just being, yes, you've got to lead and lead in certain directions, but you don't want to be out there because if you don't look after the people that are with you, a leader is going to be isolated and he'll look back and he'll have no one behind him. Mm. And the other great thing I learned in life was, learn to be in the moccasins of the other person. Find out what's going on. How are they going? Are they struggling with some things? Maybe personal, it may be outside of work. And I always did one-on-ones very regularly. And they loved it. And it was more not just about real estate, it would always be about life in general for them. And they got to a point where the trust was there that I would open up on some things that would better maybe direct them somewhere or help them with that. But one-on-ones were important.
So one-on-ones you see often. How often would you suggest one-on-ones with your team?
I would do them at least once a month.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone was just showing some signs of struggle, so it's like I'd keep an eye on them like a shepherd, on the sheep. I'd keep an eye on, like if I saw a change in someone's personality, like they might be having a bit of a rough time and you could see they were dropping in their energy,
mm-hmm.
I would take another extra one-on-one with them and just see what's happening there. So I was always visually keeping an eye on how they were looking and how they were feeling.
Okay. Real estate. That can be like a lot of hours to get the kind of success that you had. Uh like how many hours were you putting in, and how did you actually balance that with having a family and a family life?
I was pretty fortunate, really, because when I got into real estate, our children, we had 5 children, they would pretty much become nearly independent. Not quite, but they're all, the youngest was in their teens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I didn't have that pressure that some people would have as a younger person, like having young children. I don't know how I'd have done it. I don't know whether it would have been, I don't know. I don't know what it would be like to have that. So I was free of little children, I suppose, is the best thing to say.
Yeah.
And so it was much easier for me to get out there and go out at nights and work at night than a young family. I think it would be quite a tough industry to be in with young children, I would suspect,
Yeah.
when I look at my own life. So I'm just a person, like when I get my teeth into something, I'm in all, like 110%. And I probably did put aside some family activities occasionally for business, which in hindsight now, was probably not, I was probably not proud of that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was probably a bit more driven to the business than I could have been at times. But I wanted it to succeed. I was lucky. I've got a wife that's a great supporter. That was probably the biggest thing. Like Ina said, look, you just go and do it, and she'd look after the home front, and always fed me well and looked after that side of things. So I was able to focus fully on real estate, and that's what I did. It became a challenge though when I finished real estate, because I really hadn't created other hobbies
Mm-hmm.
in those years, and it was really when I stopped real estate that it was like, whoa, what do I do now? Because I hadn't created something else to fill in the gaps, and it's taken me a wee while to adjust. But to go back to your question, how did I handle it with the hours? I don't know how many hours I did. I've never counted. If the work was to be done, I did it. But I was lucky at the stage of life I was at, and with a great wife that looked after everything else for me.
You mentioned about, when you did things, you were all in 100%. How important do you think that is when you're owning a business, starting a business? Because there are a lot of people out there that go, yeah, I want to do this thing, and then they try and back off and get scared. And how important is going all in your opinion?
Well, I suppose, I look at it like this. Why start something? Because we started, like the farming, the hospitality, and the real estate all started from scratch.
Mm.
So why would you start a business, and then not give it the best that you could give it? Why would my logic is, why would I not do that? Like, I think that if you give it the best for 2 years, would be, from start to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
If you're finding it's not working for you and your family, and you've been giving it your best shot, then maybe it's not something that's for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it's common sense to me, is that if you're going to start something up, don't go half-baked with it, because it'll just end up in disappointment. And it could be quite costly. It costs money to start up a business, and particularly in real estate. Like, if you don't start getting some sales and the commission, you could find yourself in a negative situation pretty quick. So that's why I give it. And that's the best way to get success, is to give it the best you can. And as I said before, I probably got a little bit imbalanced, a little bit more business, and a little bit less family than I should have in hindsight. But hey, none of the family have got that against me. They all said that I wasn't like that. But anyway, that was their opinion.
And I'm hearing you, and it comes back to the hospitality business that you had. That, hey, you did it, you gave it your all, but then you pivoted because it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah, absolutely, Mitchell. That right fit for me in some ways, but certainly not my wife. And you've got to look at your partner too. And if your partner's struggling with with the overall package of what you're doing, you need to be well, if you want to keep your partner, you need to deal with that. And we did that straight away. And we lost money doing that because we'd only just got the business going.
Yeah.
And we didn't have years of business to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So we did our chips on that quite a bit. But, at the end of the day, it was a learning process. And, you just pick yourself up again and a bit like next, what's next, which was real estate.
Mm. And that's a great attitude to have.
Well, I tell you, it's tough the other way. If you're going to let it get you down and you struggle with, probably seeing yourself as a bit of a failure in that, you can easily go down that path. But I just believed that I had the energy to start something else.
So let's pick on real estate. Because 25 years, cool. You had a few changes, but was there a moment where everything you just felt clicked and like this was it, that you felt successful?
Well, I think it depends what you define as successful. I think the moment that I realised that I have to focus on the Mike Pero franchise a wee bit here because that was the 12 years that was the best of the 25 by a significant margin. And I think it was at a point when you talk about success, I felt that we reached success was when I had we had 9 team members. We had all of them earning well. We had the majority of them picking up monthly and quarterly awards, so which means that they were generating good income from themselves. And then when Ines and I were inducted into the Hall of Fame that they held. I think, and with that night that we were inducted and the whole team was there with us, that was the moment, probably one of the proudest moments in my life. I can still feel it now that we felt we'd succeeded in creating something that was worthy, that the market loved, because we were very, very busy with listings. And we did it on a night when the whole team were together with us. And that when I think back, that was a real highlight for us. And I realised then that we had something that was workable, was going great, and that the culture that we'd created was the right one to go with. And but the biggest excitement I always got was when the team members made a great sale, got a great award. It was the proudest moments I really had overall.
No, I love that. You've been through this. We've said yes. We've marked. I got success. I felt successful. And everyone's, individual and what they determine what success is. Now that you're looking back, though, if we can look back, was it the journey or the moment that makes it all worthwhile?
Oh, the journey. The journey, like the journey. When I think back on those 12 years, it was the journey. Starting in my lounge in the corner of the room, not really knowing anything regarding technology, and I still don't. But we had and I had to learn some stuff that in real estate that I hadn't touched before, because as a real estate agent, if you don't own the business, there's PAs and there's admin people that support you and all that. Well, I didn't have all that at the start. And so it was an amazing, it was a tough learning curve for me personally. My skill sets is not down the technology and admin field. And so it was the journey starting from that point, then ending up, with the great team we had that worked together well, and having a franchise that was Mike Pero's number one. So it was that journey from A to Z, if you want to call it, that is the bit that I reflect back on. There's not just one special moment or one special thing, really. It's that journey. And hey, there's some tough moments in amongst all that. It's not all easy, but the tough moments are the moments is when you learn. Like, it was so easy, everyone would be doing it. But if your journey's easy, I think you learn nothing more than what you know when you start. But it's in those little valleys of toughness and things are not quite 100% that you learn so much more, and you learn as your growth.
So let's talk on that. tough moments in business in your life, is there any that you'd be open to reflecting on?
Well, I think just quickly on then, I'd probably look at the dairy industry quickly. I had what's the word? I was let down by a very good friend who basically stabbed me in the back in a political sense in the dairy industry, and that hurt. When you trust someone and you're close to someone as a friend, and they do something that really has been unreasonable,
Mm-hmm.
and that I find those things when disloyalty comes in, I find that tough to deal with, and that was a pretty low moment for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at the hospitality industry, the tough moment there was losing money, like selling the business for a lot less than it cost you to establish.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty tough road to take, and particularly at my age then, I was, where would I have been then? I'd have been 60. Yeah, I'd have been nearly 50. I was in my 50s, in my mid-50s, and I lost a lot of sugar. I lost a lot of dough. So not a good time of the life to start having to build again.
Was
But
it a like a starting from zero kind of thing at that point, or where we at the end of that?
yeah, no, it was. It was actually starting from minus.
Wow.
So it
Okay.
was below the water level. And a hard pill to take, because then failure, you see yourself as a failure. You look at you struggle facing your children because all of a sudden they know what's happened. So that was a pretty tough time, and about that same time we also lost a daughter to cancer. So well, obviously that is the lowest point I've ever had in my life. There's nothing that touches that.
Mm,
So losing your money, being in a minus position, losing one of your 5 kids, yeah, things were pretty tough at that point, and
mm,
uh, it took me a couple of years to pull myself up through out of that.
mm,
But I did it with the love of my wife and family, and again, I suppose it's not like you brush it off and move on. You've got to deal with that. You'll always carry it, but you've got to move on. Otherwise, life stops, and you can't have
mm.
that. You've got to keep moving. So those are the real tough parts of my business, my working life. But my life was around the loss of the money and the loss of child.
Um, I've lost my father to cancer. I just sitting here, I could not imagine what you've gone through and how anyone would come out of that. But it probably does, I guess, show how strong someone can be, I guess, with your help of the family and coming out of that. Like you said, it took a couple of years, but it sounds like you did come out of that. And did it make you stronger?
Oh yes, it must have. When I really haven't reflected on that until you asked that question. It would have taken to toughen me up, not in a way of being tough, but uh, yeah, I think that when I look back now, I could just about handle anything after that. After losing a child, like if you can weather that storm, I believe you can handle a lot of things. And I think that the other thing that got me through, I've got strong faith, and that helped me a heck of a lot to get through those dark moments. And that and my faith and my family are the two big things. But yeah, it didn't harden me. It didn't harden me. It toughened me up that I could deal with anything beyond that. I
Mental
knew,
strength.
yeah, mental strength. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's talk about sales. You've been a salesperson, whether it's cheese or real estate. You've been a salesperson. How do you? What's your take on selling? As we mentioned before, real estate agents have sound sleazy, maybe like car salespeople at some stage. But how what's your selling ethos, or how do you go about it?
Well, the things that I see as priorities is to be a good listener. You're born with two ears and one mouth, and use them in that proportion. So listen twice as much as you talk was always something I worked on. And when I went out into the marketplace, my first objective was to build a relationship with the person. I wasn't going in the door of a home that I didn't know the people, just looking at getting a listing. My objective going into that home was to build a relationship with that family or for that couple or that single person to a basis where hopefully they would trust me. At the end of the day, the fruit of that, building that relationship, would be getting the listing. But it was never my focus. One thing I learned early on was, focus on the people and the money comes after. So I didn't have a great big script that I went into the homes with. I didn't go in there and tell them how great I was and I'd won this award and that award and that. None of that ever went into the conversation. One thing I taught myself early on was I'd find something in the home, maybe sitting there at the table. If I saw a family photo or I saw something of interest, I'd ask a question about it. Oh, look, I see. Is that your children there? Or I'd find some and all of a sudden we'd be having a conversation about family and life and maybe work, and I could be there for half an hour and we haven't even touched on real estate. And I loved if you could do that with people. Like, most people were pretty open to that. Like, a person's favourite topic is themselves, whether we accept that or not. It is. And so if you can get people talking about themselves and what they've done and their family and that, I tell you, that is such an icebreaker. And I deliberately did that, not in a weird way. I wouldn't ask weird questions to try and delve too far. But it was just something that would have a nice, light conversation. And I wouldn't have a big folder sitting there ready to give them the big sales pitch. That was well down the track. And even then, they wouldn't get a sales pitch. But I never focused on how good I was or whatever. It was more about what could I do for them and to build that bridge of trust between them and myself. That was my style. And that's probably where I felt a round peg in a square hole in the other franchises I worked in. That wasn't the norm that I saw. It was more about getting the deal, stitching it up, get it done as quick, and on to the next one. And I struggled with that, and that's why I didn't really enjoy real estate in my early years.
Okay. How long did it take you to get up and running in real estate and making an income that's worth it? Because I know a lot of people can go through real estate for a long time and be below minimum wage.
Yeah, good question. When you came to Timaru, I knew hardly anybody. I don't think I knew anyone actually in Timaru. So what I did when I started with professionals, I got on my walking shoes and I started walking some streets. Mm-hmm. But I was very fortunate because on my first morning of doing this, it was about 9:30 one morning and I was just walking up a street and a gentleman had come out to his letterbox in his dressing gown and obviously checked the letterbox. And as I just walked past, he looked up and he said to me, what are you doing out so early in the morning? It wasn't that early. I think it was about 8:30, 8:45 or something. And I said, look, I'm just new to town. I'm just starting in my real estate career and I'm just getting familiar. I didn't say I was looking for listings. I just said, I'm getting familiar with the town. And he looked at me and he said, you're just starting in real estate? And I said, that's correct. He said, you know what? He said, he lived with his two sisters. He said, we're just having breakfast this morning. This is the truth. This is not exaggerated at all. He said, we were just talking this morning about maybe we should consider selling the house. Would you like to come in for a cup of tea? Dinkum, first person I met. So I went in, had a cup of tea. The end result of that was I listed the property. Lovely, lovely people they were. I listed the property. I did 2 open homes. During those 2 open, and we had a contract on the property. In those 2 open homes, I picked up 2 appraisals, and I haven't looked back since. That's a true story. I had business. I probably had my first check 6 weeks out.
Wow.
From memory, something like that. And it was just one roll from the other. But I was so fortunate that he was at the letterbox just at that moment. Like,
And saying that, the mere fact that you were actually out and doing the work, so many people may have just not been up at that time of the morning, been behind their computer, and not been out and about to do that. So, that's, I guess, what it takes. And you're probably a little bit lucky there, but you still made it happen.
Yeah, and if I hadn't have met him, I know me, I would have just kept walking and done so much of that per day. It's like I say to the young ones today, like, social media is phenomenal with what you can do on it. I see it. I don't understand it, but I see it. But please, I say to them, don't forget the interpersonal importance of life. People still want to touch people. And I try to encourage them, don't sit at your computer day in, day out expecting something to happen or expect someone to walk in the door. Yeah, that might happen. But get out and meet people. Every Friday afternoon, virtue without fail, I'd walk down both sides of the main street of Timaru every Friday afternoon around 3 to 4 o'clock, and I always met someone to have a chat to, maybe get a lead that they knew the neighbour was thinking about selling or someone across the road. And the guys used to laugh at me. They thought that was phenomenal. I always did that for many, many years because I believed I had to be out to be seen. I ain't going to be. I'm not going to. They're not going to find me behind the desk.
So I did the same thing. I had a little game with myself, and I put 5 business cards in my pocket. I'd go to lunch, walking down Main Street, and my goal was just don't come back until those business cards are out of my pocket and in someone else's hands.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually care if I went to a shop and said, "Here's my card as well," or bump into someone in the street. So yeah, really powerful.
No, it's very good. Yeah, no. It's a great thing to do, and I think even today the young real estate agents need to. I personally believe a bit more to do that, and they do tend to. I know they got to do computer work, but they tend to stay in the office too much. And hey, having a coffee with your team members in the office is okay for half an hour, but don't do it for 2 hours.
What do you think's the best investment that you've made in yourself or in your business? And we'll talk about real estate, I guess.
The best investment I've put in real estate? Well, I always continued to educate myself. Like, I never thought I knew it all. And so even in the tender, well, I was 60. See, I was 62 when I started the Mike Pero franchise, so I was no spring chicken. But, I was hungry for anything. I went to all the conferences in Australia, ARAC. If there was a conference on or a training session on, I'd be the first one there. Always was. I was like that through my life in any way, in other spheres. But I always was prepared to learn something more to help me to become a better person or to become a better real estate person. And I was lucky. I was hungry for that. I've never waned from that. I still do. I still go on YouTube and learn things, and I'm still personal development to me was something I loved. And so that was I think the best thing that I did, and didn't to think that I knew enough anyway. I just kept learning.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And like you mentioned about your age in terms of when you got into real estate, how much of it was hustle? Because you still need to have the energy to get out and do this.
Well, I've been blessed with good energy, and I'm 70. I'm 70. What am I now? I'm 76. I'm 76 now, and my energy level is younger than that, and I'm just lucky to have that. Like, it's not everyone does. I've lost friends. I've lost quite a lot of friends in the last 3 or 4 years, my age and a couple of years younger, and it's tough. And I don't take it for granted that I'm lucky that I have. First of all, I think I have reasonable genes, but the most important thing I've got a wife who is a phenomenal grower of food, and we live off our section. And the fact that I minimise the processed food in my life, and I live well on great diet and great vitamins, I've got the energy. That's why I'm standing for council this year. I've got the energy. I've got the energy beyond the level of most of the young councillors there. I watch them, and they just say they're half asleep halfway through the meeting, and I'm just fortunate I have that energy. I'm at 76. I still want to do more, but that's just me.
So, well, let's just bring this up because I had no idea that you were running for council, and the district is
Timaru District Council.
Timaru District Council. When is the next vote for the Timaru District Council?
Yeah, all the local bodies elections are in October this year.
October this year. Okay. So I would love for people in that district to actually watch this and get to know you and understand what you can actually bring to the region. So here it is. I'm going to ask you, what is it that why you're standing and what is it you're going to be bringing?
Well, the reason I'm standing is that I believe that I've been fortunate throughout my life to be involved in a lot of governance, through the dairy industry days and etc. I've learnt a lot. I've been on boards that have made some big decisions, and I've been part of that. So I feel I've learnt a lot about governance, because that's what a council role is. It's not management, it's governance.
Mm-hmm.
I have an appreciation of strategic planning, financial management that I learned through the businesses that we've created.
Mm-hmm.
And that, alongside with my passion, my deep passion for this region, I've had that since the day I moved here. I just love this area here. It's a phenomenal place to bring up families. And that mix of experience and my passion for the area were two things that I wanted to bring to the table. I attend a lot of council meetings now as an observer, which you're allowed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's since I've finished full-time work, I've been doing that. And it's been sitting with those and observing those meetings that's made me realise that I believe I can contribute in a positive way. Councils do spend money like it's going out of fashion. We've increased the debt down here. We've increased the rates down here. We've made some unbelievably, I think, unwise decisions. And so I've been critical of that from time to time. So I've thrown that in as well and said, well, if I'm going to be interested and critical of what I see as not right, then I need to be brave enough to go and have a crack. So it's a combination of experience, enthusiasm, passion for the area, and I believe I can contribute positively to the future decisions of the council.
Hey, well, all the best for running for council. I, for one, just knowing you in past business, think you'd be an excellent councillor. I won't even stop there. That I really hope, one, get on there, and two, maybe mayor. If that's in the cards. I just think I just think you'd be great. I will say, obviously, Graeme Wilson. My last name's Wilson. No relation here, just to be really clear.
No, unfortunately, we're no relation. We only met through the Mike Perro real estate business, mm-hmm. and we've had some wonderful chats. I remember having a couple of good chats with you. Always liked you from the day I met you, and it's wonderful to see what you're doing today. And I'm privileged to be given an opportunity to have a chat with you and connect again with you again.
Oh, look, the privilege is all mine. I was so excited to have a chat, because every time I'm with you, I learn something new. And as you said about being a lifetime learner, I too just want to do that. And the fact that I'm learning from my elders, sorry to put that out there, but I'm learning from others to see what's they can bring to the table, because I don't know it all at all, but always striving for getting further. This has been great, Graeme. Hopefully we may even get to chat again, and all the best for running for council. Maybe you'll just be walking around those streets again like it was from day one. Who knows?
Yes, I will be doing a little bit of that too. Yes, it all came back to me.
Nah, I love it. Hey, really appreciate your time. This was Let's Talk Business, and we've certainly done that, so I appreciate it.
All the best with what you're doing too, mate, and love to hear from you again in the future.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Okay, bye.
Let's talk small business. I appreciate you tuning in. If you got value, hit subscribe, like, or drop a comment. It spreads the word and might just help another legend get their breakthrough.